Okay, I've got questions. A lot of questions. But I'm going to boil it down to 5 questions that I really think we need answers to when it comes to Signalgate, this controversy over a number of Donald Trump's national security advisors discussing on a Signal thread that they accidentally added a reporter to about a strike in Yemen against the Houthis. Okay, so let's break it on down, shall we? If you're not familiar with the story, let me just do a quick bit of context. So, Jeffrey Goldberg is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine. He was added through accident, I assume, to a Signal messaging group that included Vice President J.D. Vance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, among others. 18 people were on this thread. And what he realized after thinking it was a scam or some kind of phishing expedition, what he realized was this was potentially real. And what was being discussed was an attack, a planned attack against a rebel group in Yemen. And the principals involved in this chat were very candid. It was never clear to Goldberg totally how he got added to the chat, but once he realized it was real, he left the chat. But point being, he got a lot of access, including operational details about what was going into this attack. I mean, this is a colossal scandal. So I have 5 questions, okay? And I'm going to go through them one by one. There are more than 5, but these are the 5 as I was flying to North Carolina this morning, which is where I am. Hello, UNC. Go Heels. I was thinking about this story a lot, and here are the questions I came up with. Let me start with number 1. Who was Mike Waltz, a national security advisor, trying to add to the Signal chat? Obviously, he added Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic. It seems unlikely that was his initial goal. Someone with the initials JG? Jeff Goldberg, but who was it? I mean, I find that fascinating because it was clearly an accident to add Jeff Goldberg. And then second question of my first question, I'm in true reporter fashion, I'm packing several questions into each of my questions. Why didn't anyone look through who was on the Signal chat and be like, wait a minute, why is Jeff Goldberg on here with the vice president and the national security advisor and the DNI head and the Secretary of Defense? There are only 18 people on the chat. It's not like a 2,000 person thing. Like, it seems like you could just go through that and be like, this name seems odd. One of these things is not like the other, but no one did that. Okay, so that's question 1. Question 2. How often do senior Trump administration national security officials use Signal, the messaging app that they used, to discuss either classified, secret, or just highly specific information about U.S. intelligence or national security planning? It seems very unlikely to me that this was the first time this ever happened, right? Like the tone of the Signal chats, which you can read in the Atlantic story, which I will link below, all of this seems to me that this was something they did regularly. But Signal is not, I mean, while it is encrypted communication, it's not like just texting someone. It is not super secret. It is not being in a secure room and having a call within, sort of a room that is free from potential eavesdropping and listening in. I mean, it's a pretty, out of all the communication channels, it's certainly not the most secretive in terms of when we are having our vice president, defense secretary, etc., discussing specific plans of a future planned military attack. This would not be my preferred mode. So how often has something like this happened before in the 2 months that they've been in office? And what were those things? So that's question 2. Before I get to my other 3, I want to just say briefly, make a pitch, which is, I'll keep the baseball metaphor alive. I am an independent journalist calling balls and strikes no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. I think that is a critically important role in this political environment because it is so charged, so partisan. Everybody is telling you what you want to hear as opposed to what you need to hear. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes you'll agree with me, sometimes you won't. But that's the point, and that's why I think it's valuable. So if you value that kind of independent journalism, I hope you'll subscribe. All right, now, back to my 3 other Questions. When I've communicated via Signal, which is not often, but sometimes, you set in the Signal app, you set how long before the messages disappear. You can do instantaneously, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. But the point is, it's in there so that if someone was able to break into your phone, they couldn't just scroll through all of your past Signal messages. They would not be there. But federal officials, particularly at the level of vice president, defense secretary, the head of the DNI, they have to retain records of their communications. It's part of the sort of federal Records Act, right? They have to retain that stuff. So was this stuff disappearing from Signal? And if so, is that a violation of the Federal Records Act? I tend to think it would be without knowing the specifics. I mean, I guess they could set the rules of the chat to say disappear never, but I think that's very, very unlikely that they did that. All right, question 4. Donald Trump gave a quote on Monday saying, quote, I don't know anything, or I didn't know anything about this. Now, that seems odd to me because he's the president of the United States. So is it possible he didn't, what he was saying is, I didn't know about this Signal group chat that they had in which they were discussing how to plan the attack? If so, a little weird that he wasn't aware that those conversations were happening, but not super troubling. Was he not aware that the attack was happening? Had he not been told about the planning for the attack? That seems less likely to me, but his comment, which I think he just kind of, honestly, like a lot of things Trump does, he just kind of tossed off. I don't think he put a ton of thought behind it. His comment makes me think that it raises questions. That's all I'll say. It raises questions. Okay, last one, question 5. Is anyone going to get fired for this? So what we know is that Mike Waltz, who is a former Florida congressman, now the national security advisor, was the person who, I assume, accidentally added Jeffrey Goldberg to the Signal chat. We learned that in Goldberg's piece. But on Tuesday, Trump said that Waltz was a good man who had learned from his mistake or something like that. Now, this is Trump. Things can change. But that doesn't seem to me the quote of a guy who is getting ready to get rid of someone. Maybe you just don't say anything, but it's weird that you would kind of give him a vote of confidence. Maybe it's a vote of confidence before he gets rid of him. Pete Hegseth, same thing. So Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, sent operational details, according to Goldberg, operational details of a military strike on a non-government secured platform, Signal. Is he potentially on the chopping block? It seems to me like it's at least worth a conversation. I mean, I can only imagine. Look, when Hillary Clinton had a private email server when she was at the State Department, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, everybody who's currently in administration blasted her and said this was a huge violation. What was she hiding? She was exposing potential national security. It was a national security risk, et cetera, et cetera. Well, adding someone who is not part of the national security team to a non-government sanctioned messaging system and going through operational details of a military attack, that seems to me to be more serious than Hillary Clinton having a server that was private and not through the State Department. I mean, and again, back to my earlier question, this is probably not the first time this has ever happened in the Trump administration, right? I mean, it seems unlikely. So if nobody is going to get fired, why isn't anybody going to get fired? Because this seems to me, and I'm not in favor of people losing their job, but this seems to me like a fireable offense. Like, even if it was a mistake, an honest mistake by Walz to add Jeff Goldberg, dude, you gotta be like a little bit more careful when you're the national security advisor. You know there are bad actors, China, Russia, etc., monitoring and trying to get in on this stuff. If you're going to create a group that has 12.5 members, can't you make sure, double check? I mean, when I send an email that's even mildly controversial or mean, I always check to make sure who's in the subject line, who's in the receiving line, so that I don't accidentally send it to the person it's about. Yeah, I'm that guy. So, why is Mike Waltz not doing that? And why is Donald Trump, who got famous, I will remind people, for telling people, you're fired, why is he, at least not yet, willing to fire anyone? All right, so those are my 5 questions. Who was Waltz trying to add, and why didn't anyone check the membership? How often does this group use Signal? Has it happened before? And if so, on what? Were the Signal messages sent to expire? If they were set to expire, is that a violation of the Federal Records Act? Trump says he didn't know anything about all this. What exactly didn't he know about? And is anyone getting kicked to the curb for this? Is anyone getting fired for this? So those are my 5. I got more, but those are the 5 that jumped to mind for me. As always, I ask you, if you have not subscribed, become a subscriber today. It's easy. It's free. Just hit the subscribe button. Like this video, comment on this video. Both of those things are for the algorithm. The YouTube algorithm rewards engagement and likes. If you can like and comment on this video, it helps it get to more people. It broadens my reach. It makes it easier for me to do more videos. So that would be helpful to me. And the last thing is a old school thing I ask of you, which is, just tell a few people if you like these videos. Tell them about what I'm doing. Spread the word that way. You are my best verifier and evangelist. If you like what I'm doing, even if you don't agree with me all the time, if you like what I'm doing, I hope you will share this channel with other people. All right, everybody, take care.